Jacob, were also pastoral nomads. It was in the desert that the patriarchs defined their belief in one God. Now, after centuries of exile in Egypt, the Israelites returned to their wandering desert roots as they set out toward the Promised Land.
Our view soars over the desert. Words appear. Numbers chapter 13, verse 2.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. Go, see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, whether the land is rich or poor."
Now, in slow motion, two sets of camel hoofs trot away in the sand. As they pass parched scrub growth, the riders bounce on their saddles. Now the camels walk past towering cliffs.
And they returned after 40 days. The land where you sent us truly flows with milk and honey. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and they gave the children of Israel a bad report. And the children of Israel complained, "If only we had died in this wilderness. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will these people reject me? The carcasses of you who complain shall fall in this wilderness, according to the number of days in which you spied out the land. 40 days. For each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely, 40 years.
The Bedouin leads the camel over the terrain. Now a yellow haze hangs over a range of shadowy mountains.
The desert not only cleanses, God seems to be saying, it offers space to grow and renew. Only by spending 2 generations in the wilderness will the Israelites fully purge themselves of their past and become a nation of God.
Now the jeep speeds past a dune covered with delicate wind-worn ripples. Under a blue sky, our view drifts over the caramel-colored sand and jagged rock formations.
For all those years, the Israelites wander from place to place in the Sinai. Then Moses leads them across the Jordan River and north toward Mount Nebo, on the edge of the Promised Land. To follow their route, I flew over Wadi Rum, a 25-mile desert corridor.
On the map, the red line travels northeast, leaving behind the southern mountains of the Sinai. Wadi Rum lies in Jordan, south of Petra. On board a helicopter, Bruce waves. The chopper lands and he meets a man by a jeep.
I was excited to meet my friend Avner Goren, the Israeli archaeologist who had originally launched me on this biblical journey.
Bruce and Avner hug.
Avner works on archaeology projects with Jordanians, Palestinians, as well as Israelis. He believes in building bridges among Jews, Christians, and Muslims. We would continue on together. But first, he wanted me to meet some Bedouin friends.
They drive past a herd of sheep.
These modern pastoral tribes offer a window into what the Israelites may have experienced during their 2 generations in the wilderness. Traditionally, the Bedouin move in tribal groups, searching for grazing areas for their herds. They thrive in this harsh environment and draw meaning from living in vast, open spaces.
As they pull up to a large tent, 2 young boys in headscarves watch with smiles.
As the Bible demonstrates with Abraham and others, the rules of hospitality are central to desert life. Every visitor is entitled to 3 days of food and shelter, no questions asked, after which they are as welcome as a snake.
Now a woman takes a bowl out of a hanging net bag.
Life in the desert is lived carefully. They use only a few modern utensils. When washing dishes, not a drop of water is wasted.
A woman drizzles water over dishes.
Water must also be conserved for the animals. Herds are a measure of wealth and an integral part of their lives.
The 2 boys jog away from a makeshift corral, and 2 young goats romp with each other. Now we see the distant camp lying on the vast barren desert.
Survival here depends on sensing and responding to every aspect of this ever-changing environment.
Twilight, Bruce and his host gather just inside the tent's open end.
Very beautiful home. The desert, its people, and its spirit were seeping into my pores.
At a campfire, the hosts pour water from copper pitchers into teacups. Avner translates for Bruce.
I could feel the environment bringing me closer to my own understanding of God. How many people can stay in this tent?
10 to 12, depending on how many rooms.
So I live in a city, a very big city. If I came here to the desert to live with you, could I survive?
This environment is a tranquil, peaceful place, so you'll have a healthy life.
Jesus was a prophet. He lived in the desert. Moses was a prophet. He lived in the desert. Muhammad was a prophet. He lived in the desert. If you live in the desert, are you closer to God?
Thank God we're close to Him everywhere. In the desert, we live beneath our God. We make a living from our animals and live in the beauty of nature and quietness.
Bruce nods. Outside the tent, a man strokes a stringed instrument with a bow. Now, as the sun rises, orange-tinted clouds hover over the desert. Our view dissolves to the light breaking over a mountain. Now at the tent.
The next morning, the idea of trekking through the wilderness was back on my mind, but with a new perspective. You know, I was thinking there are mountain people, there are beach people. I think I'm now a desert person. I just never realized it before.
My father took me to the desert in a very young age, and I was amazed by the beauty, the power of the place. The desert gives you different scale, different proportion, and I think that it made me much more open to the world.
Outside, Bruce looks to the land.
The thing that's most appealing to me about the desert, I think, is that it reminds me of my own limitations, how needy we are as humans. When God forces the Israelites to spend so much time here, He pushes them to make a similar transition. What happens to me, I think, is that I wriggle free of my instincts, logic, and reason, and stumble towards some new way of relating to the world: emotion, intuition, trust. And what happens when I leave here? Will I lose that feeling? Probably. But that's another appeal of the Bible, I think. It's like this remnant from the wilderness. Touch it, and we're in the desert ourselves.
Now, in the Jeep, Avner crosses two wires from the dashboard and hot wires the vehicle. Bruce shakes hands with his host and gets in.
I was learning that success and survival in the desert demand constant adaptation, faith, and trust. This is precisely the lesson that the Israelites take so long to learn.
The Jeep travels onward.
At this point in our journey, we face the mystery of where this education took place. After recounting the hardships of the Israelites' first 2 years in the desert, the Bible is virtually silent on where they lived for the next 38 years. Many believe that the Israelites spent that time in the northern Sinai,
A map appears.
but new research suggests they may have stayed in one of the most famous sites in Jordan. That's where we decided to go.
The red line advances north to Petra.
This valley, near the ancient lost city of Petra, would have provided the Israelites a far better place to live, and the rugged, steep terrain would have offered natural protection.
Now, Bruce and Avner ride through a gorge.
We headed for Petra on horseback, the best way to get there through this narrow gorge known as the Seek.
The gorge walls bulge in places and indent in others.
Petra was built by the Nabateans, the tribe of wealthy Bedouin traders who thrived around the time of Christ.
At the end of the gorge, they approach a massive columned facade carved into the mountainside. Sunlight illuminates the ornate temple architecture. Tiny in comparison, the men ride closer.
Petra is famous for a signature structure called the Treasury, a royal tomb carved out of the sandstone. It's so magnificent, it looks like a movie set. In fact, the Treasury was featured in the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Above the facade's columned pediment, more pillars on the second story stretch from a decorative cornice.
I realize we're in the desert, but with the columns and these friezes, it looks almost Greek.
Yes, the Nabatean were nomads. They didn't have tradition of building, so they borrowed from the Greeks.
So was this ever used as a treasury?
No, the story says that the Pharaoh chasing the Israelite hide his treasures over here.
You mean the Pharaoh of the Exodus?
Pharaoh the Exodus.
Wow. This legend persists despite the fact that the treasury wasn't built until long after the Israelites would have been here and far from when the Pharaoh stopped chasing them. Legends of the Israelites are still part of the lore of Petra, which local Bedouin call the Valley of Moses. Nearby, some local vendors were taking an afternoon break.
Bruce and Avner join the men around a fire pit. They shake hands with one another.
Moses came to this area. Will you help me understand, why did Moses come here?
Moses came here after his journey near the Dead Sea, and he was not allowed to go to the Holy Land.
So how long did he stay in this area?
He was in Egypt and then here in the desert for 40 years.
Do you think that Moses spent 40 years in Petra?
He stayed, well, he stayed here for a period of time, for a long period of time.
One of the men serves the guests drinks. As a herd of goats lingers in a carved grotto in the mountainside, Bruce and Avner explore on foot.
Although these buildings were carved 1,000 years after Moses would have walked here, his route almost surely took him past these hills. Avner and I settled in front of the royal tombs and pulled out our Bibles. You know, I saw this line in Deuteronomy 11. Therefore, impress my words upon your heart and teach them to your children. It's almost like they're in this national teach-in. If you want to be God's chosen people, you've got to know God's laws. By the end of Deuteronomy, only a handful of people who escaped Egypt are still living. In the final chapters, Moses preaches to the Israelites on what they will face. His 40 years of leadership are almost over.
Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19.
I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your descendants may live, that you may love the Lord your God, and that you may obey his voice.
Nighttime. Outside the treasury ruins, two Bedouin men warm their hands at a fire in a metal box. Avner and Bruce confer nearby.
There's a question I've been waiting a long time to ask you. Why did you come on this journey with me?
I like adventure.
Well, we had that.
But you know, beside that, I was trying all my life to build bridges among people, among cultures. And the values of the Bible are universal. They belong to everyone. And also there is an old saying that I love: the way to keep a trail alive is to walk on it.
Nearby, a man pipes on a wood flute. On the map, the red line travels north from Petra to Mount Nebo.
The trail of Moses and his people now led us toward Mount Nebo, the place north of Ammon where the Bible says Moses dies. Mount Nebo is not far from the Dead Sea, and barely 30 miles due east of Jerusalem.
Passing several goats, they head onto a gravel path.
Finally, we reached the rocky road, which leads to the ancient monastery perched on top.
The jeep wends uphill.
I opened my Bible to Deuteronomy 32. Ascend these heights to Mount Nebo, God says to Moses, facing Jericho, and view the land of Canaan, which I am giving the Israelites as their holding. This is the third big scene happening on a mountain, right? You've got Ararat, Sinai, and now here comes Nebo.
Well, mountains are landmarks, but I think that much more, they are high, they are close to heaven.
Our view soars over a smooth mountaintop speckled with plants.
After telling Moses to ascend Mount Nebo, God informs him that he will never set foot in the Promised Land. I always thought it was one of the saddest moments in the Bible.
Bruce and Avner trek on foot.
Do you think it's sad?
No, Moses got much more. He got face-to-face meeting with God.
Words appear, Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 5.
So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. Since then, there has not arisen in Israel a prophet like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face.
As the sun sets, golden light spreads throughout the sky. Bruce and Avner face the horizon.
That's the poetic twist at the end of the 5 books. The land is not the destination. The destination is the place where humans live in concert with the divine. Moses wasn't looking at the land. He was looking where we should look. He was looking at God.
Our view glides over the mountain.
When I first started on this journey, I was interested in scientific and archaeological questions.
In a flashback, Bruce raises his arms in front of a pyramid.
By the end, I had a much more spiritual journey, drawing closer to the Bible and entering the story myself.
Bruce walks with Father Justin. Now he heads up a hillside with a Kurdish man in a tan sports coat. The image dissolves into Bruce scaling a rocky mountainside. Now our view looks out at the dome of the rock.
In the end, I had reached the destination that the 5 books of Moses, at least, may have intended all along. I had reached the promised land, Israel, the place where one strives with God.
A deep golden sun hangs above the horizon. A bird flies over the silhouetted ruins of an ancient settlement.
If you would like to learn more about this program, Walking the Bible, visit pbs.org. Walking the Bible is available on videocassette or DVD. The companion book to the program is also available. To order, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS.
Credits based on the book Walking the Bible by Bruce Feiler. Executive producer Drew S. Levin. Producer Rebecca Dobbs. Director David Wallace. Story by Bruce Feiler and Alex Gregory. Telescript by Alex Gregory and Joan Meyerson. Edited by Ash Hazen. Co-host and archaeologist Avner Gorin. Realized for television by Drew S. Levin. Copyright 2005 TMC Entertainment. This program has been described by the Media Access Group at WGBH with funding by the U.S. Department of Education. Described by Dutch Priest and Stacy Perlman. Read by Pat Lentz. For more about description, call DVS at 1-800-333-1203 or visit our website at access.wgbh.org. KQED presents and TMC Entertainment.